Hi, I'm all dressed up for working outside because today we're going to be talking about tapping, but not the tapping we're used to doing, because today the tapping has to do with making maple syrup because we're going to be tapping maple trees. Now, to tap a maple tree, you're going to need some basic equipment. First and foremost, well, you need a bucket to gather the tree sap in. Secondly, if you want to keep everything clean, you're going to need a cover. You also need to drill a hole. So I'm going to use one of these old-fashioned hand drills that came to me from my father, who I believe got it from his. It's an old Stanley, it's a really nice one. And a single flute auger bit, because it cuts really crisp, nice holes. It's a 1/2-inch bit, and it cuts clean, it doesn't mash the fibers, so this will help the sap to flow properly. And obviously, you're going to need a little spout, and this is going to be inserted into the hole, and through this the sap will flow. And on it we have a little hook that we can hang our bucket from. Now, to set that spigot into the tree, we're going to need a hammer. And here's my go-to hammer, and I know Tom Lipton has a thing for hammers, so I'll show it to him. It's a really nice, generic, no name, comes from my grandfather. A generic ball peen with a forged handle and a lever at the end to act as a pry bar. I use it for all kinds of things, roofing, all kinds of things. It's a great little hammer. So I'm going to be using this one to set that spigot. So let's go see how to install this spigot. First thing, obviously, is you're going to want to find a sugar maple tree that's at least 8 inches in diameter. And you're going to want to drill a hole about 2 inches deep on the sunny side of the tree. If possible, 3 to 4 feet off the ground. Now, I'm standing on 3 feet of snow, so it's going to look like I'm drilling a little low, but it's 3 and 4 feet off the ground without the snow. So let's do that. Now that I've drilled my hole, I can set my spigot and hang my bucket. And now we wait, because it can be 1, 2, or 3 days before this bucket needs emptying. Hi, it's been 2 days since I tapped the maple trees, and yesterday was a little on the yucky side. We got a snowstorm, but today we have perfect weather, and the best weather to get sap from a sugar maple, well, is about -10 at night and +5, +6 during the day. And that's pretty well what we had last night, and that's what we have right now. So we have the perfect weather conditions, and the maples are flowing. So I have a clean container, and I've got my funnel, so let's go get some sugar water. So I have my little setup here. I have a jam making pot that I'm going to boil my liquid in. I have a little propane burner here. Well, actually it's quite a large propane burner, around which I've set up a cowling just to protect it from the wind. Lose a little less heat that way. And in that pot I'm going to boil my sugar water. And I'm going to boil for a good long while because the ratio is 40:1. And that means that I'm going to have to boil 40 gallons of sugar water to get 1 gallon of maple syrup. Now, you may have noticed that I'm strategically positioned next to my pool, and that's for if this gets a little too hot and I get to overheat, well, I can jump in and cool off. Well, I may have to wait for the water to become a little less solid. So let's get this burner going and start boiling. Hello again. A day has gone by and I've been boiling on and off for about 8 hours time. And as you can see, the mixture is starting to thicken up. And actually the sound of the bubbles is starting to change. It's a little crispier, and that's an indication that I'm getting close to the finishing stage. There, now we're getting really close. We can hear the bubbles, they're nice and crispy. We can see that the liquid is going a lot darker and it's getting a little thicker, and we can smell that nice sugar maple smell. So the last thing we want to do here is burn this, because the minute it burns, it's done. We can't save it anymore. So to take no chances, we're going to strain this through a fine mesh coffee filter, put it in a clean pot, and go finish it indoors. Now that we're indoors and that we can control things a little better, I'm going to filter a second time. This time I'm going to be using a paper coffee filter, just to get all that loose protein out of the mixture and get a nice clear syrup at the end. You want to filter it now before the syrup gets too thick, because obviously once it's thick, it's very difficult to filter. When making syrup, it's all about temperature. For syrup, you want 104 degrees centigrade or 219 degrees Fahrenheit. For maple taffy, we want 114.5 degrees centigrade or 238 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I can see here that we're at the proper temperature for syrup. So let's turn off the range and let this cool down a little. A few things that need to be said. Maple syrup will keep for a long period of time in a cold room, but it has to be placed in a sterile container. You can also freeze it, and when thawed, you can't tell the difference. It's just as good as it was before it was frozen. You also have to know that the window for producing syrup is quite limited. From the time the tree thaws to the time that the buds break, that's all the time that you have. And that means 2-3 weeks tops. And there you have it, maple syrup. You know, I usually make videos about the shop, but I have viewers all over the world, and I realize that many of you never had the occasion to see how maple syrup is made or where it comes from. It's really just that simple, but it is something that's incredibly delicious. So let's try it. Disgusting. Now, to say that this maple syrup is good is a bit like saying that the Titanic is a big boat. It's true, but it doesn't even come close to describing the reality of it. So, if you ever have the chance to try some, do so. It's terrific stuff.
You